Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're talking about how to choose e-learning that boosts your business. It's great to have you with us today, and I'm thrilled to be joined by David Marshall, who's the founder and managing director of Ciphr eLearning. Welcome, David. How are you?
I'm very well. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, and I'm also joined by Meg Halpin-Webster, who's our associate instructional designer. Welcome, Meg. How are you doing?
Hi, Catherine. I'm well, thank you.
Fantastic. Here's a quick look at today's agenda. We'll just share a short overview of Ciphr and Ciphr eLearning before I hand over to Meg and David. They'll talk you through things such as considering if you should DIY your e-learning content or work with a trusted provider, what to look for in an e-learning partner, how to choose the right courses, whether off-the-shelf, customized or bespoke e-learning is right for you, how to build a relationship with your chosen partner, and towards the end, we'll have time to have a quick look at our revamped course suite, including a first look at some of our new courses. There's also time at the end for Meg and David to answer your questions. So if you have questions at any point, send them in using the Q&A option on your screen. This is being recorded and the recording will be emailed to you afterwards. So before we dive into Ciphr eLearning in more detail, here's a quick look at the complete product and service offering from Ciphr. If you're new to us, we cover everything in the employee lifecycle, right from recruitment and onboarding through to central HR software, payroll software and bureau services, benefits, analytics, and of course, e-learning, which we're talking about today, and also D and IB consultancy. So if any of those other elements are of interest to you, you can find out more on our website, which is ciphr.com, or you can email us at ciphr.com and one of our experts will be happy to talk you through it. And with that, I'm going to hand over to David, I guess, for the first slide. Is that right?
Yes. I'm happy to kick things off. Thank you, Catherine. Thanks for the introduction. So thank you all for attending. I really appreciate you taking out time to join. What I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about Marshall eLearning and our journey into becoming Ciphr eLearning. I started the business 22 years ago as a specialist business on online diversity training. And, we worked with a lot of local authorities and universities, but that grew into corporate organizations as well, law firms, banks, and so on. And, after about 18 years of that, we'd established 300 corporate clients, specializing in diversity, but organizations wanted us to go into a broader range of topics. So we thought we need to grow. And we found the ideal home within Ciphr. So we're now Ciphr eLearning, and we've grown the list of courses. We've got a larger team, and suddenly from being a very UK-focused business with some work in Ireland, we started working across Australia, Canada, United States, and across Asia. It's been an amazing journey. For myself as a business owner, moving into a corporate, it's been a bit like sort of doing an intensive MBA. And I've learned a lot, but it's been fantastic. But now we've got a new generation coming through. So I'd like to introduce our newly appointed lead instructional designer, Meg Halpin-Webster. And she's going to be taking us through some themes. And I'm going to try and chip in at the end wherever I can, but Meg's really the expert. So Meg, over to you.
Thank you, David. So hi, everybody. Thank you again for joining. To kick off, the first thing I wanted to start our conversation with is, should you DIY e-learning or work with an e-learning partner? So let's dive into that. So as you can see on the screen here are some reasons why I would recommend working with an external provider for your e-learning. So to kick off, instructional design expertise is essential, and expertise matters, especially in this area. And again, not to toot my own horn, I am an instructional designer, but it means that there's a thorough understanding of how people learn. So instructional designers take that knowledge and they use it to influence how content is presented, the choice of interactivity, and the kind of screen types that are used throughout an e-learning course. So obviously at the core of this, it's learner-centric, and instructional designers can give that expertise about how to make an e-learning course engaging. It's not something that we expect people to automatically know already. That's why that instructional design expertise matters. Another reason is scalability and speed. So outsourcing to an e-learning company can accelerate development and offers you the chance to deliver something on a much larger scale very efficiently and smoothly. So if you're, and also another key point there is if your e-learning needs to be translated into many languages. So if you're working with, if you're in HE and you've got international students that might be doing a course, or if you're in corporate and you've got different branches that are all over the world, you might need translation. And an e-learning provider that can do that for you will save you so much time and also just make it a lot smoother. And also your best bet is to just kind of work with an e-learning company that has experience, scaling out, rolling out large scale projects. And finally, quality assurance. So by working with an external provider, you can take solace in the fact that they are tried and tested at what they do and tried and tested in creating high quality e-learning content. So again, touching back on that learner-centric design being built into everything that they do, there will be a built-in QA process, whether that's proofreading content, checking sources, down to the technical side of things, the compatibility with SCORM files or the delivery on an LMS. So they're just some of the key reasons why I think working with an external provider is important. But to elaborate a little bit further, DIY e-learning can sometimes fall short. So as you can see here, this is an example of one of our bespoke courses that we created for Coca-Cola on the right of the screen there. So why DIY e-learning can be difficult is, again, that lack of instructional design. It runs the risk of you not kind of creating content that's engaging. You can sometimes miss that element of how can I make this exciting? How can I make this relevant? And that's where the instructional design comes in. Instructional design principles ensure that content is digestible, relevant, and creative. Without knowledge of appropriate interactivities to use, the best ways to position content and to keep learner attention consistent, you run the risk of creating a resource that learners just try to skip through to get straight to the end, and that's not what anybody wants. Lack of LMS expertise as well. If you want to be able to track your learners and track completion and track any kind of statistics like that, you might not have the knowledge of how to do that, whereas an e-learning provider can help you and support you in those ways. And also you might find that you have limited time or resources to build content that's effective and engaging, and that's okay. That's what e-learning providers are there for. So DIY is a great option, but when I'm talking about resources, I'm talking about maybe multimedia, access to filming crews, access to stock photography that you can use throughout. And all of those elements help to make an e-learning course more engaging. So, you might want something, you might want a film scenario, but you might not be able to film it. Or you might want to create an animation to make something a little bit more exciting, but not have the resource to do that. So that's also why an e-learning provider can be really useful in that area, because they will have that network and that community of people that can help create those elements for your e-learning. And finally, there's a need for compliance, accessibility, or industry-specific standards a lot of the time when it comes to e-learning. So working with an external provider gives you greater reassurance that the product that you create will meet those necessary standards. For example, a lot of e-learning providers will have to have knowledge of accessibility, particularly working towards achieving that WCAG 2.2 accreditation, for example. That's the basic, that's the standard of accessibility. And we need it to be accessible. Everybody wants accessible e-learning. Without it, it's limiting. It can have a lot of problems if it's not accessible for learners. And you don't have to know those standards. We can help you provide those. But also, if your organization works to specific compliance standards or sector-specific standards, we should be able, as an e-learning provider, talking generally here, be able to help you meet those and use that experience and expertise to help you make sure that any e-learning that we create meets what you need it to. David, do you have anything to add about what you've learned from DIY e-learning and the use of an e-learning partner?
Well, gosh, you made a lot of points there, Meg, which I agree with. I would say we wouldn't want any client to be dependent on us, and there are some great tools for developing your own e-learning. So an ideal scenario for me is we set them up with some courses, but they can develop their own simple, short courses, create a policy online with a test. I'd like clients to be able to do that themselves or update content we create for them. So a lot of people use Storyline and Rise from the Articulate suite. We know about those. They're good. A lot of people use those tools. Lately, we've been looking at Evolve, so we would recommend a look at Evolve. We like our designers can do more with Evolve. We can create there's more scope for graphic design. So I think that's an interesting tool. And lastly, there's a great tool that's come out of Brighton. So there's a UK supplier, Elucidat, and we just created a learning game with Elucidat, and I thought it was really good. And so well worth having a look at Elucidat. But so absolutely look at that. Why I think clients come to us and other providers is we're working on this all the time. So we provide you vast economies of scale. So because we're paying for legal updates, videos and animations, accessibility testing, we spread those costs across all our clients. So actually it's far cheaper for you to take one of our courses than for you to go out and commission all of those services yourself. So that's probably the main reason. And then likewise, we save you money in terms of the updating of content. Every year, Ciphr eLearning, we update our content, and that goes across our client base. That's a really important advantage. The other thing, we've got a budget for research and development, so we're always innovating. So that's why we can keep bringing in the new tools and testing them out. And then finally, I suppose, we've got a client community network. It can be a lonely role being the company e-learning developer, whilst within our sort of network, we have client community meetings where we have speakers. Clients can network with each other, and that sense of community is really important.
Thank you, David. So moving on, I'm now going to talk about more specifically what we think you should look for when you're looking for an e-learning provider. So to find your perfect e-learning partner, it's important that they align with your business goals. So this kind of means, do they understand your organization? Do they understand the context that you're working within? Do they understand the wider industry that you're within? This is especially important if you're addressing a specific challenge, or if you're addressing meeting general compliance standards, those kind of things. They need to know what your goals are with the e-learning. Do they also understand your specific organization, your culture, and your values? So this is really important in terms of, if you want to create e-learning that feels relevant to your learners, they recognize that it's your branding, it's your feel, it's your culture. This is also important. If that's a priority for you, you need to make sure that your e-learning partner understands that and can provide that and replicate it in e-learning. And finally, do they understand the learner and what the learner needs? So I would normally, as an instructional designer, conduct a learner needs analysis. I'll talk about this further on in a few slides' time. But more specifically, it's understanding that learner and the type of format that they would benefit from, what interactivities are going to engage them, what that kind of thing, and those kind of content pieces and how you position it all go into choosing the right e-learning partner that can provide that for you. It's also important that you have a collaborative approach with an e-learning provider. So are they willing to involve you in the creation of the content? So it's not the kind of commissioning a course and then you never hear anything from them until it gets delivered, because there's quite a high chance that that isn't going to be what you asked for, or there's a high chance that it's not going to connect with your people and your learners, and it isn't going to reflect your organization if that's the case. So having a collaborative approach, it involves kind of keeping you involved at every step, making sure you're happy with the developments from the content side of things, from the look and feel, from the delivery. All those aspects tie into that nice collaborative approach. And also, do they pay attention to your specific needs? So that ties into kind of what I was just saying there about your goals and what you're kind of addressing. But it also applies to how you want to deliver it. Does it need to be mobile first? Does it need to be on an LMS? Does it need to be something that can be easily trackable? Does it need to be a resource that learners can repeatedly access without having to go through every single slide over and over again? And finally, do they listen to feedback? So obviously feedback is so important, and it's a key part of the process of e-learning and the development of it more specifically. And you need an e-learning partner that's open to feedback initially. If there's changes to be made, they should be willing to make them to an extent. And obviously it's because those changes will help you meet those goals. If you find something that isn't working for you, you don't like a screen type, you don't like the use of an image or media, because it doesn't reflect your values and your organization, they need to be willing to accept that, acknowledge it, give different suggestions, just to make sure that at the end of the day, you need to be happy with the e-learning product. I'll elaborate more on the collaborative approach after this slide. I wanted to delve into specifically the different roles involved in that, but I'll come to that later. Also, there's technical compatibility. So David mentioned a couple of tools just then about, authoring tools that you can use for e-learning. Your organization might have a preferred authoring tool, whether that's Articulate Rise, Storyline, Evolve, Elucidate. There's obviously lots of different choices and everybody uses them for different reasons. But I think it's important to make sure that obviously if you do have a specific one, whether that's to meet a certain standard or to meet an accessibility point of view, if you have a preferred authoring tool, hopefully your e-learning provider will be able to meet that and use that for you. But also it's important that if you don't have a preferred tool, that they're there to give you the options. They're there to give you different avenues of taking an e-learning in different ways. Do you want it to be more interactive? Do you want it to be more standard and simple? There's lots of different ways, but I think if you're coming at this from kind of a blank canvas and you don't have a preferred authoring tool, you want your e-learning provider to kind of guide you through those options and kind of show you what you can achieve with different tools. So that's really good if you find someone that can do that. And also back to the LMS, will the content that they create for you be compatible with your LMS if you have one? Because if it isn't, it's kind of a waste of time and it's not going to be what you need it to be. So obviously making sure that it's compatible with your LMS if you've got one, or there's different avenues of how are we going to roll this out? How are we going to deliver this to our learners? That kind of thing. You need to make sure that they're clued up on that and they can help you and support you in whatever way. And finally, scalability and flexibility. So can the e-learning provider grow with your needs and can they adapt to shifting priorities? What I mean when I say this is throughout a project, we've had many projects that have lasted a long, significant amount of time. We're talking 6 months to a year, if not longer. And of course, it's normal that within that time scale, changes can happen. Your priorities might shift. What you really want to talk about in the e-learning can change. The number of learners might change, the style of e-learning might change. There's lots of different factors that can change throughout the evolution of an e-learning process. And because of that, you want to make sure that your e-learning partner is able to adapt to that and to help you, support you through those changes, because they do happen. And also adapt to it in a way that supports you and helps you to get the best out of a product that will still meet those changing needs. And also, are they flexible with feedback from different stakeholders? So obviously what normally happens is you'll commission a project with one department from an organization, and then you'll get to the delivery point and you realize that lots of other people, lots of other key stakeholders within that organization need to give their approval, need to give their feedback. And it really opens up how many people need to kind of be involved. And obviously when you are taking on a lot of feedback like that, things will change. Some people will like some elements, some people won't. And those, key stakeholders are really important. You can't ignore their advice. You can't ignore their feedback. You need it to be taken on so that everybody can benefit from the e-learning. Everybody can look at it and think this is a really valuable resource for us. And so you need your e-learning provider to be receptive to feedback. Again, touching on feedback being so important for a collaborative approach, but also you need them to be receptive to different changes that might appear along the way, whether that's much further down in the process or whether that's right at the beginning. There's lots of different things that come along with stakeholders. So to elaborate a little more on that collaborative approach, so a collaborative approach is important because it ensures accuracy and relevance of content, it ensures process efficiency, it enhances the learner experience, and it also helps you to align with the goals of the organization and project. So you can see in the infographic here on the screen, I've kind of shown the SME, which can be the client or subject matter expert, the ID, which in our case would be me, but obviously instructional designer, and the developer. And I've kind of presented this in this way to showcase that everybody learns from each other throughout an e-learning project. The SME, whether they're coming with content that they've got ready or whether they are going to collaborate with the instructional designer to create the content, they work together. But then also the ID and the developer work together to build the course. The ID advises on screen types and the developer will build those, but the developer will also have their own area of expertise. If they create a screen and it doesn't look right, the content is too clunky, there's too much of it on a screen, a certain interactivity type doesn't work, they can give their expertise as well. And also from a development perspective, The clients can learn a lot from the developer. They know what they're doing. They know how to help learners navigate through a course. And there's that kind of different levels of expertise. And when you bring them all together, it's a real well-rounded kind of holistic approach to creating successful and engaging e-learning. David, do you have anything to add about this kind of collaborative approach and why it's really important?
Well, I mean, in terms of what to look for, in an agency or a partner, I would ask to meet the people who will do the work. So often, and I've been a corporate buyer of e-learning on the client side, and sometimes it's the largest firms with the most marketing and the most PR, the biggest stand at the exhibition hall, and you think, well, you know, let's go with them, you know, and it's possible that they give you their most junior people, the people that are just starting out. So I think if I was advising a friend who was commissioning e-learning, I'd say make sure you meet the people that are going to work on this project. That's really important. I'd also look for genuine enthusiasm for the project. So if the enthusiasm is all about sending you an invoice, that's a bit of an amber flag. What you'd like is for them to participate with ideas with you. And maybe you could say, how about you generate a scenario for us, and you could review that, or some sample content, or even a couple of mock-ups. I mean, I think in these days, you can expect that from a provider where they deliver something just to show that they're genuinely invested in the project. And just lastly, I would talk to some of their clients. I think that's really important. I mean, it's one thing to have logos on the website, but there's nothing better than actually speaking to one of their clients who will give you a bit of advice on how best to work with that agency.
Thank you, David. Kind of following on from that, so we've spoken about choosing the right e-learning partner. Now we're going to kind of talk about choosing the right courses for your learners, and I'm going to specifically talk about different formats of e-learning that you might benefit from. So as you can see on the screen, I'm showcasing microlearning and scenario-led e-learning. So microlearning as a format is great for bite-sized content and building a foundational knowledge of a subject, or even as a refresher. So much of our microlearning courses are built using content from our existing in-depth courses, which I'll explain in a moment. But the microlearning option is there as a way to ensure that those key points are taken away. It's really useful. You can see here on the screen, this is a screenshot from one of our wellbeing courses. We find that certain subjects really lend themselves to different formats. And I would say that wellbeing courses really lend themselves to microlearning. It's something that learners can dip into. It's very, visually, they can be visually a lot more appealing. And also, it's just a really good format if you want that kind of, quick tick. We have a resource here for you on this topic. And then also you've got scenario-led e-learning. So this can be achieved via filming with actors. You can have a detailed animation scenario, or you can even have written content with stock imagery. So it's not strictly video-only format for scenario-led. This kind of e-learning format is great when you're prioritizing practical takeaways or a showcase of skills with e-learning. So the screenshot that you can see on the screen here is from one of our mental health courses. And this particular scenario guides a manager on how to respond to and support someone that's going through struggles with their mental health. It's also a great format for contextualizing a topic for your specific organization or wider industry. It's a great way to show your learners that you understand their role and their position in society, in their organization. So for example, for a HE course, your students might benefit from seeing student actors in a student society room or that kind of thing. And the same with a corporate organization. If a scenario is showing actors in an office environment, as you can see here, it makes it feel more realistic. It makes it feel relevant to them, and it gives them that kind of practical application in a real world environment. So moving on, another format that is very popular is presenter-led e-learning. So this format offers a structured experience for the learners. It keeps them engaged. It's almost like having checkpoints, and you kind of work through it with a presenter to take you through the content. And it helps to build that sense of human connection. There's that, as you can see, there's the video with a presenter taking you through maybe a key concept or a definition, and then you'll have written content supporting that further development of knowledge. It works really well for complex and nuanced topics, such as the development of soft skills, or sometimes for onboarding and induction e-learning. I know a real favorite for us for induction e-learning is having somebody from if it's a university, having the vice chancellor. If it's a corporate organization, the CEO. Having kind of a presenter-led approach to kind of guide them through that e-learning can really create a really interesting learning experience. And finally, there is then in-depth e-learning. So this is necessary when you need learners to work through a large, detailed topic. So it typically has a longer run time. You're normally looking at around 30, 45, 60 minutes, and it gives you the opportunity to really dive deep on a topic. So I've chosen to show a screenshot here from our Information Security Smart training. This is a great example of an in-depth module because within it, there are 3 units. One on UK GDPR, one on information security, and the third one being safe online. So each unit will have its own, kind of area of content for learners to work through. It's quite a big course, but obviously this information is need to know. You need people in your organization to understand GDPR. You need them to understand information security and how to be safe online. So this format has to be you kind of have to have it be this detailed. But each unit within is supported with videos and engaging animations to support the content. So moving on, there's off-the-shelf, customized or bespoke e-learning. We're just kind of opening it up with more questions and different options for you. So I'll kick off talking about the difference between off-the-shelf and customized e-learning. So as you can see here on the screen, we've got on the left side, the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion course, which is our generic off-the-shelf course. And then you've got the customized version for Scottish Parliament, which looks lovely. It's got their colours, their logo, their branding. It's just a great visual representation of what customized content can look like. So I think that off-the-shelf content is important for if you need something to be very generic. If you're trying to hit a mark, it doesn't need to necessarily reflect your organization. It doesn't need to it doesn't need to be anything too complicated. It doesn't need to be anything too nuanced. It's just simply, we need learners to know about this. Off-the-shelf content is great for that. It's also when you need something to be deployed fast, off-the-shelf is great. If you need something and you need it now, whether you're meeting a deadline, whether there's a change in legislation and you want to make sure your learners are all up to date with what they need to know, off-the-shelf can be great for that. And also off-the-shelf is a really great option when your budget is limited, because of course, off-the-shelf content, it is still high quality e-learning. The content is all there. There will be, we have a great offering of off-the-shelf content. It's not in any way not detailed enough. It's still all there. All the information is there, but it's a great option if you only have a limited budget. Whereas customized is where you can go that little step further. You can make it more applicable to your organization. You can, again, as you can see here, add your policy, add your branding, add your colors, insert your own policies and insert your own processes if you've got them on a certain topic. It's a great way to just kind of go that level up. But of course, if you really want to make impactful change, I'm going to lead on because David will speak about this in more detail. There is always then the option of bespoke e-learning. So David, would you like to talk us through when to choose bespoke and why that's a great option?
Sure, Meg. Well, let's look at the topic we've been spending most of our, the most widely taken course over the last year since the legislation changed last October is around sexual harassment in the workplace. And lots of organizations needed to comply with that or show proof to an external body that they had delivered their training in that area. So our off-the-shelf course, checked by legal, fully updated, meant we could deliver that very fast. So it's very good for legal compliance. And then with customized, I don't know why it is, but the uptake does go up when you do take time out, even just have photography of your own offices, quotes from your staff, your own branding and policies, the uptake will go up. However, if I have an organization come to me and say, look, David, we have an issue here. We've got a bit of a culture where staff think it's okay to joke inappropriately in sort of in the warehouse, or we've had a client complain about some language one of our team were using, or we've had social events where, you know, people complained about unwanted behavior and which could be construed as harassment. Look, then we would look at a bespoke course, because we're looking to change the culture. And so what we might do is, if it was a construction company, we might look at filming with some of the lead foremen who might say to camera how this kind of behavior is unacceptable. So it's a collective effort through the whole organization. It's not an edict from HR that everyone must do this. And when we create those kinds of courses, that's where we see the beginnings of a gateway to cultural change. And then I hope people get together and talk about it. So that's just my reflections, Meg.
Thank you, David. So next I'm going to talk about how to build a fruitful relationship with an e-learning partner. So here are some of the key reasons. I think to build a fruitful relationship with an e-learning partner, you need to set clear expectations and briefs for any project. This means outlining the requirements of the content, information about the learner demographic, the scope of the project, and obviously the deadline as well. I think giving all that information at the beginning means that everybody's on the same page, everybody's on the same footing, everybody knows what they need to achieve from this project. So I think that's always a great place to start when you're trying to build that positive relationship with an e-learning provider. And also, we've kind of touched on this throughout, regular and open communication. So staying informed throughout the project, encouraging regular check-ins at different points. For example, if you know that you're going to be working on a long-term project, having a weekly or monthly check-in to see how things are going is sometimes a great way just to build that sense of trust and help the incorporation of feedback to be better, that kind of thing. That's also really beneficial. And finally, well, not finally, but being a strategic partner is also important. So that means sharing insights from your business and feedback from your learners to help shape better e-learning solutions is a great way. So we want to learn from you. Again, that collaborative approach, we want to learn from a client. We want to learn from their expertise about their area, about their business. And I think you can use that in a really strategic way to make sure that the e-learning product that you create ends up being everything it needs to be and more. And finally, investing in the relationship. So this is something that we recognize a lot. We've got some very long-standing relationships with clients, which has been fantastic. But partnerships that are long-term yield better understanding and more impactful e-learning. And I think there's also an opportunity for delivering consistent e-learning experiences, consistent positive experiences with e-learning by having that partnership with an e-learning organization. So it's kind of, if it's a great way to make sure, if you know that something works with your e-learn, if something works with your learners from e-learning, if they respond really well to a specific course, then you can take that information and say, let's do this, but for a different topic. Or you can say, let's try this a different way. We got this feedback from our learners. It just helps to create a more consistent offering and delivery. And I think consistency from a learner point of view is really helpful. It helps you engage with the content. You're immediately back there in it when you're working on another course. So I think that's a great way to make sure, it's really worth investing in that way to deliver that for your learners. And so talking about exciting and engaging courses, I think it would be great to now talk about our refreshed Microlearning suite, which we are launching very soon. So as you can see here, this is our Microlearning suite. These are the titles that are going to be included in there. So there is obviously some of our key courses from the last 20 years, diversity in the workplace, safeguarding. They've been really important topics for us. And again, talking about the microlearning format, we're building on our existing content. We're building on our existing expertise to create these microlearning courses. So there's a great offering there. And the whole point of this offering is that it's designed for every industry. It's designed for every professional sector. And it's been a really exciting venture for us to see how we can take that content, update it and transform it to create a new offering this year. So what is new about these courses? They are, again, sector agnostic by design. They all feature film scenarios and engaging animations. But I think another key point here is the relevant case studies. So each course is it's completely up to date. All the information is there. There's featured case studies, sources are all up to date. So there's no way that a learner could sit there and think, oh, this is a bit out of date. It's definitely not. It's all brand new and it's all there. Here's just some nice more visuals. David, do you have anything to add about our microlearning suite?
Only when I started the business in 2002, I could do 90-minute courses. And now everybody wants me to cover the same amount of topics and content in 10 minutes. It's really challenging. So we've redeveloped these to be shorter, snappier, fully up to date. They're all the case studies from 2024, 2025. And then we're just going to keep updating them. And then it's my preferred mode of learning. I personally like, even if I've got a low budget, I like to work with actors and to look at real teachable moments, things that are coachable, not just tests on legislation. I don't particularly enjoy that. Each to their own, but it's our preferred approach. So yeah, excited about the new offering from Ciphr.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And we've also, this screen shows that it's all mobile first as well. So the courses still look great visually on a mobile phone or on a laptop, which I know is becoming an increasing priority for a lot of organizations. They want their learners to be able to access the e-learning from wherever they are. They don't have to be sat inside an organization at a desk working on it on a computer. So that was a great visual. And Catherine is now very kindly going to play one of the film scenarios from one of our courses, from our mental health course, just to give you a taste of what that kind of film scenario can look like inside e-learning.
Have you seen Chris this morning?
No, he's not in today.
Why is that?
He's off sick.
What, again?
Yeah, says he's got a bad back, but I think it's stress, to be honest.
Really? I know it can sometimes get a bit hectic around here, but it's not that bad.
Well, he does often get pretty overloaded, especially since Petra left. Are we going to be hiring a replacement for Petra soon?
As soon as we find someone, yeah.
Great. I think that will help.
In the meantime, I don't want to sound unempathetic, but if you can't stand the heat...
Yeah, well, that does sound a little unempathetic, Evie.
Look, I am sorry Chris is stressed, Esme. I am. But we're just really busy at the moment.
Okay, but isn't that a good reason to look after everyone properly? Chris has been under pressure for weeks now. He's actually starting to get really anxious.
What, Chris? Really?
He's not the only one, Evie. We need to put more support in place and take some of the pressure off.
Okay, look, I might have been misjudging this busy period we're having. I'll talk to HR, see what they think.
Thanks, Evie. I'll message Chris later, see how he's doing.
Yeah, good idea. Send him my best wishes.
Yeah, will do. In fact, I'll message him now.
So I had a chat with HR and it made me realise my attitudes were a bit out of date. Since then, we've made some changes. We've introduced optional mental health days off for people who need a bit of a breather, and I'm reviewing workflows to make sure no one's getting too overloaded, which should hopefully reduce absenteeism a bit. And then actually, we should get more work done as a result.
So yeah, I hope everybody could see that and you all enjoyed it. So we hope that that was a good insight into the kind of scenarios and reflections that we've included in each of these courses. I think we're now ready to move on to the Q&A. If anybody has any questions, please do share. We're here to answer them for you.
Thanks, Meg and David. It was awesome to hear about your experiences of working with different clients and their different requirements and the benefits that you can add of working with a trusted provider like yourselves. And also to see that preview of the mental health course, it really just shows how those scenarios can bring learning to life and also the production quality of it. I think there really is a payoff for using professional actors and good studio lighting. While there's always a case for user-generated content, with these ones, which are more sensitive subjects, you don't really want to film that with your own employees. Having sort of a neutral party do that is really helpful. So I'm waffling slightly because we haven't had any questions in, but hopefully if anyone does have any questions, now is the time to send them in. I guess for me, I would just love it if you guys could each single out one key takeaway for our audience today of what to consider when they're thinking about creating, commissioning, designing e-learning.
I think from my side of things, if I give my side, as an instructional designer, the key takeaway would be leaning into that collaborative approach and, utilizing the expertise and the skills of the different people in an e-learning team. I think it's a really great way to make sure that anything that you create reaches its potential and goes beyond it. I think it's a great way to kind of also think outside of the box. You might come to a project and think, well, this is all that we can do with it. But actually, when you really kind of bring everybody together, you might find that it can really expand outside of that and be bigger and better than you thought it could be. So that would be my advice and takeaway there.
Thanks, Meg. David, how about you?
I suppose only I'd say it's very popular now to commission learning portals where, there could be 300 courses. And for me, it can become a bit like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Suddenly, nothing looks appetizing. And I think if I was commissioning e-learning in-house, I would work with the heads of each department saying which courses would be particularly topical for you. And I would have them involved in the decision making. And then I would help them see that they've been listened to, those courses are available. And because then you're giving people some agency and some choice in what's available. And then I think the uptake does go up. So that, and then just lastly, when you're picking the design of the courses, I tended to go to courses I liked, my preferred learning style, which is like TED Talk style, take a quiz at the end. Whilst others I found later found that approach rather dull. They'd rather do assessments, drag and drops, and those tend to be the people that love crosswords and Sudoku and Scrabble. They love like the quizzes and things. So just make sure everyone's learning preferences are included.
I think those are both really great points, David, and it puts me in mind that Ciphr internally, we're on our own journey with L&D, and our L&D team put out a survey this week saying, if we covered these 10 courses, which ones do you want to do? And how do you like to learn? And here's how you can figure out your learning style. So beyond the line managers, you can also gather that kind of intelligence from within your employee base and use that as a foundation, either for identifying the right off-the-shelf courses or really help create something that's bespoke or customized to your learners' needs. So you know that when the course is in front of them, they're really going to get value from it and complete it and engage with it. And it checks the boxes for everybody. So I think that's a good point, just to think about what your learners actually want rather than making assumptions on that front. Okay, well, I think that will bring us to the end of the broadcast for today. So thanks, David and Meg, for sharing all of that information and your insight. I really appreciate it. Thanks to our audience for joining us today. If you have any feedback, please drop it in the chat or use the exit survey. That really helps us improve for next time. If you'd like any more information about our courses, you can email us at info@ciphr.com. There's also a free trial option for our mental health course on your screen now. So if you want to take a free trial of that once the course is finished, it should be ready in the next couple of weeks. Please hit that button and we'll arrange that for you. Thanks again, David and Meg. Thanks everyone. Have a great day and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you.